The Fed has put the screws to gold and silver and the precious metal mining stocks. Why did they do that? How did they do that? Well, they're doing it because they're claiming the economy is relatively strong. Great employment. As a matter of fact, Janet Yellen, who's not with the Fed, she's with the Treasury Department, used to be with the Fed. She just the other day when she was in Michigan said the economy of the United States is now stronger than before the pandemic. Let that sink in. Nonetheless, the Fed has been able to tighten monetary conditions, which has killed gold and silver for about the last year. We won't even talk about what it's done to your precious metal mining stock portfolio. But the reality is, and nobody's talking about this right now, the Fed is still painted in a corner. Remember all these gurus were always saying the Fed is being painted in a corner and they're kicking the can down the road. And well, the reality is the Fed is painted in a corner. The reality is the United States government does have a tremendous, that's not even a strong enough word to describe it, a stupendous amount of debt. Remember all those calculations about what's going to happen to the U.S. government interest expense when rates go up? Well, guess what? That's happening right now. Nonetheless, the Federal Reserve has been standing on this ground for about the last year that in order to fight inflation, we need tight monetary policy and tighten things up. And that works great when you have a underlying healthy economy and when you have a country that doesn't have 120% of its GDP in outstanding debt. I call BS. And in this video, if you're still with me, which I hope you are, we're going to talk about 10 things that provide definitive proof that the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government are not standing on solid ground, that the economy is indeed weakening. Let's get started right now. I've got twin 10-year-old daughters, and when I read this first statistic, I found it to be astounding. Only 36% of American families reported that they could afford to buy school supplies for their children this year. That's not 36% who couldn't, that's only 36% reported that they could. Now that's a necessary and primary expense, right? Like school supplies generally go right after food and healthcare, and only 36% of American families say they can afford them? What the heck is going on? I mean, did people not realize that school was going to start? Maybe put some money away? I don't know. I'm not here to preach at you or anybody else, but the fact that only a little over a third of the American people say they can afford back to school supplies, and it's not that much. We're not talking about can't afford college tuition. We're talking about can't afford, backpacks and notebooks and things like that. Now, I know it all adds up, but come on, that to me is a major, major red flag about the health of the American economy. And there's a recent Gallup poll, which leads us to point number 2, stating that 56% of Americans are reporting financial hardship because of inflation. And it goes on to state that 12% of the people are experiencing severe hardship, skipping meals, skipping necessary medical treatments and expenses. Oh yeah, the U.S. economy is looking real strong. And I got to talk about real estate because I'm in this luxurious basement. We could go on for hours about the weakness in the real estate market. Everywhere you look, name a financial company and you can then Google real estate weakness and you can find a plethora of articles talking about how the real estate market is crumbling. And I don't hear anybody talking about this one. Number 4, a few weeks back, Stifel Nicolaus polled a number of head executives at companies in the United States, and 97%, not 96, 97% of them said that we are either in a recession or heading into a recession. That leaves 3% of the eternal optimists who think we aren't. I mean, these guys are CEOs. They are paid to be optimistic. And when 97 out of 100 of them say what they said, I'll let you draw your own conclusion. We're almost at halftime. Number 5 out of 10, consumer credit. Credit cards, all-time high. Why? I wonder why. I wonder if it's because people have to put their food and fuel and medical expenses and maybe their back-to-school expenses on their credit cards. I hate credit cards. I use them and pay them off every month. I would recommend that you do the same, but you didn't come here for financial advice. And since everybody ran up their credit cards at Burger King and Wendy's, we now hear number 6, that the lines at food banks are longer than any other time in history. Americans are relying on charity for food like they never have before. But Jerome, the U.S. economy is doing great. You are important, and if you're enjoying all this positivity here in Ron's Basement, don't forget you're always welcome here. I hope you decide to come back. If you'd like to subscribe, you can do that right here. Turn on the bell notifications, share the video with anybody you like, but most important, leave a comment in the comment section below. That's where we get to learn about you, learn your perspective, learn from you. We've heard it our whole life. The heart, the soul of the American economy is small business, entrepreneurship. So when we get this next statistic, our ears really perk up. Nearly 4 in 10, or actually a little more than 4 in 10, 40% of U.S. small businesses are reporting that they're having a hard time paying their rent. That does not bode well for the U.S. economy. If indeed small business still is the heartbeat of the economy, what's going to happen when they can't pay their rent? And this next statistic, it doesn't come from the United States of America. No, it comes from the United Kingdom. But heck, we're like brothers anyway, right? 6 in 10 manufacturers in the United Kingdom are at risk of closing because of the energy crisis. And that's not just affecting the United Kingdom, it's also affecting Europe as a whole, Germany, everywhere over there. Putin has turned off the gas and it's causing major pain for our friends in the United Kingdom. And on top of that, the Queen died. I'm very sorry about that. But back here in the United States of America, we're not really having as drastic of an energy crisis like they are in Europe. Nonetheless, 20% of Americans are behind on their utility bills. No wonder people can't afford back-to-school supplies. 20%, 1 in 5 Americans behind on their, that's again a primary, that's like food, that's like healthcare, electricity, water, sewer, all that good stuff. Guys, that does not say good things about the health and robustness of the U.S. economy. And I'll wrap up with this final negative point, and then we're going to get into some keen insights into what's going on and what's gonna happen because I turned on the crystal ball. The final thing I'd like to mention is inflation. The dollar store is no longer the dollar store. It's now the $1.25 store. When I go there to buy my candy, because I like candy, especially Sprees, I used to be able to get a box for $1. Now they're $1.25. I've been working on this complex algorithm for the last few days. I think that equates to 25% inflation, which I think if you talk to anybody here in the United States of America, they would tell you 25% is a much more accurate depiction of what inflation has been in this country in most segments over the last year. And I know I shouldn't bring this up. You know you shouldn't do something, but you go ahead and do it anyway. I'm going to go ahead and do it. Why the heck are all the McDonald's playlands still closed? You know, the playgrounds that about 1 in 4 McDonald's would have, where you could bring your kids, get a Happy Meal, sit there for 45 minutes and watch your kids play inside any weather. It was great. They closed them during the pandemic. They've yet to reopen them. To me, that's constricting economic growth in this country. They need to reopen the darn McDonald's playlands. Let's be real, guys. Things are worse than the Fed is leading us to believe. Their job is not to be real with us and tell us the truth. Their job is to try to kind of be like the Wizard of Oz behind the scene and control perceptions, control things, not so much a lot of times by their actual actions, because their actions haven't been all that tight. More through their talk, and boy, we know they've been doing a lot of that lately. But when we peel back the covers, when we look at things like what's going on with those 10 factors I just listed for you, look at the amount of debt that the United States government has. Remember all that back just, a year ago? People would say, oh, if rates go up X amount, the government won't be able to afford to pay interest on its debt. Well, again, that's happening right now. They are painted in a corner. And while they're in there, they're given their last little battle, right, of squawking and talking and trying to convince everybody they've got it all under control. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm wrong. I very well could be, but I don't think I am. And I think that when the market wakes up, on top of the fact that we've got these major geopolitical shifts going on in the world, that it could spell a really good time to be holding metals, to be holding the precious metal mining stocks, because the true value of the metals, of the mining stocks, will shine through like they have for thousands and thousands of years. Hey, thanks for joining me in Ron's Basement. You know you are always welcome. Until next time, you be well.